There is a moment in every life when strength no longer looks like standing tall. It looks like sitting down, breathing deeply, and finally admitting the truth. This story begins not with success, but with silence. Her name was Claire Mitchell, and for most of her life, she was known as the strong one, the one who didn't cry, the one who handled everything, the one everyone leaned on. From the outside, Claire looked unbreakable, a respected professional, a dependable friend, a daughter who never complained, a woman who had learned early on that love often came with conditions. Be good, be quiet, be strong. But what no one saw was how tired strength can make you. Claire learned early that vulnerability was dangerous. When she was young, every time she showed fear, she was told to toughen up. Every time she cried, she was told others had it worse. Every time she asked for help, she felt like she was failing, so she built armor. And the armor worked until it didn't. Years later, one quiet evening, after another long day of pretending she was fine, Claire sat alone in her apartment and felt something unfamiliar: emptiness. Not sadness, not anger, just a hollow place where joy used to live. She whispered a question out loud, a question many of us are afraid to ask. Why do I feel so disconnected even when my life looks so complete? That question cracked something open. Because here is a truth we rarely talk about. You can achieve everything the world tells you to want and still feel like you're disappearing inside. Claire began to realize something uncomfortable. She wasn't exhausted from doing too much. She was exhausted from being someone she wasn't. She had spent years avoiding rejection by avoiding herself, and that's when she encountered an idea that changed her life, not from a stage, not from a bestseller list, but from a quiet lecture she stumbled upon late one night. The voice said, "Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the most accurate measure of courage we have." At first, Claire resisted it because vulnerability felt like exposure, like risk, like standing without armor. But slowly, painfully, she began to experiment with truth. She started small. She admitted when she didn't have the answers. She said, "I'm not okay," and survived. She allowed herself to be seen without performing. And something unexpected happened. People didn't leave. Some leaned in closer, some opened up too. Some said, "I thought I was the only one who felt this way." Claire realized that shame thrives in silence, but heals in connection. For the first time, she understood that courage wasn't about control. It was about honesty. But the journey wasn't pretty. There were moments when she wanted to go back to who she used to be, the version of herself that never needed anything. Because vulnerability invites uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. Yet every time she chose truth over perfection, something inside her grew stronger, not louder, but steadier. She began sharing her experiences, first in private journals, then in small discussion circles, then eventually on a public platform. She didn't preach. She didn't pretend to be healed. She simply told the truth about fear, about shame, about self-worth, about how courage often feels like trembling hands and a shaky voice. And people listened, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Messages poured in. A man who had never cried in front of his family finally did. A woman who had lived behind achievement learned to rest. A teenager struggling with self-worth realized they weren't broken, just human. Claire learned something profound. You don't inspire people by showing them how strong you are. You inspire them by showing them how human you are. Success followed, but quietly. Impact applause-driven success. She was invited to speak not about motivation, but about courage. Not about winning, but about belonging. On one stage, under soft lights, she said something that stayed with everyone in the room. You don't have to earn your worth. You are worthy because you exist. And in that moment, people felt it, not as an idea, but as permission. Claire never became fearless. She became brave. And bravery, she learned, is not the absence of fear. It is choosing authenticity even when fear is present. Her life didn't become easier. It became truer. And here's the part that matters most. This isn't just Claire's story. It's the story of anyone who has ever hidden to belong. Anyone who has ever chosen perfection over connection. Anyone who has ever believed they were too much or not enough. Let this remind you, you don't have to armor up to be accepted. You don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. Your vulnerability is not your weakness. It is your power. So the question isn't, are you strong enough? The real question is, are you brave enough to be seen? Because the life you want, the connection you crave, the peace you deserve, it begins the moment you choose courage over comfort and authenticity over approval. And when you do, your story won't just change your life. It will give someone else permission to change theirs. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. And if you want more stories about courage, growth, and inner strength, subscribe to this channel. Because your journey doesn't begin when you're ready. It begins when you're brave enough to start.